transfers to your company. Remember, you're not personally going to be buying any of these things. We got to use an LLC at least, right? Because we don't want you to put yourself in a bad liability. We got some people sleeping in the room yet? Oh, I saw someone sleeping. I'm not going to call them out yet. We'll do it next. All right, title transfers. Then you make monthly payments to the seller. And we're back. Then you get a 0% interest rate. Oh man, has anyone ever got a 0% interest rate before?
No.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. I encourage you guys that. Has anyone ever asked for one?
No.
That's why you didn't get it.
Mm.
It's as simple as that. Most people are just always, they just don't know what to ask. And typically if a seller says, well, I need a certain price, I'd say, I would love to give you that price. What we just need to do is we'll close on it, we'll make monthly payments towards the principal. And then on or before a certain date, we'll cash out. Does that sound fair? And they'll all say yes, every single one of them. No, not every single one of them, but some do, and that's all that matters. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Have you ever been paid to buy somebody's house?
Sure. Bought a 6-unit in Pawtucket where the guy had to pay us like $15,000. Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Yeah, it sounds like you have.
Yep.
You want, that was like an undertone brag there. It's like, you guys ever done that before? I love it. How much money did you get paid?
I got paid $5,000
Love it.
on one up front, and then I got paid $219 a month for
Like
3
subsidized?
years. 3 years.
Love it.
It was on a condo because their condo fees were a little bit hefty.
Love it. Love it. You're going to be up next. So on Saturday, you're teaching for an hour, all right? All right, here's a deal that Rick did. So Rick, you want to walk through this deal for us? Well, come on up so you can use your mic. Maybe real quick, if you wouldn't mind, just tell everybody who you are, maybe a little bit of what you did, and then walk us through this deal.
Yep, I'm Rick Abbiati, I'm from Nashua.
It's not my dad, just so you guys know. I know everybody was wanted to ask.
I spent nearly 40 years in the defense industry as a defense contractor. I actually started off wholesaling in 2016 with not a lot of success. I really didn't enjoy lowballing sellers. Not to say anything wrong with that, but and I joined the Wicked Smart community in May of 2021, and ended up leaving my W-2 less than 2 years later. And my first 4 deals were 6-figure deals, each one of them. So this deal here was actually my very first appointment that I went on it with creative financing. The seller had 8 properties, and he had renovated this property here, and it had a Title V issues, so he had to put a new septic system in. So I gave him the option if we could take care of it, or he could. He went ahead and did that. This one here, this was an owner finance deal. The seller was in his mid-70s. He said, I can't wait 20 years for my money. And I said, well, how about 48 months? He said, yep, that's good. So my payday one on that was $36,500, and that's money again in my pocket. And then monthly payments, I had to pay the seller $1,225. That was principal only payments, no interest. And I was collecting $1,551 from the tenant buyer. The tenant buyer was somebody that was relocating back to Massachusetts from Georgia. And her and her boyfriend, now husband, wanted a place, and they saw this place. It's got a lot of really nice land to it. So I had a monthly cash flow on that, and they are getting ready to cash out within a couple weeks after 2 years for $47,000 more in my pocket.
Love it. If you guys notice this is the big thing with seller financing, especially at 0% interest. How often, is there any other way for you to get that much principal paid down by using any other strategy? The answer is no, especially on a, what do we buy? For $276 and go for $299.9 and you get $58,000 in principal pay down. This is where it starts to make the deal. So let's walk you through it, right? So payday one, non-refundable deposit, $36,000, right? HIP National Bank. It does get credited towards the purchase price though, that's important. because we're helping these buyers improve their down payment so that way they now only have to qualify for a bank loan, $36,000 minus $299, right? So they're getting into this deal. Then we got about, nothing huge here, right? But you're making $125 a month, positive cash flow. Remember, there's no management. So if you're used to dealing with landlords, CapEx, management fees, handling those things, there's no management here because this buyer acts like and is treated like a homeowner. So you don't get called in the middle of the night. This is as passive as you can get when you talk about passive income. Then over here is now the deal is starting to come to a head, right? So we increased the price premium by $23,000, meaning we bought it for $276 over $299. We're paying down this much debt, $58,000 in this time frame. We already collected the $35K, so that needs to be pulled off. So we got $47,000 on the back end. So when this goes to close, right on the HUD, Rick is going to have, according to this, $47,000 that's going to come into his pocket afterwards. So his total paydays on this deal about $89,000.
And if it cashes out in 2 years rather than the planned 4 years, it's no big deal. It's still a lot of paydays.
Well, how much money did you put down this deal?
0.
Yeah. Okay. Does he call that again?
Yeah. And the seller.
Infinite return?
The seller has other properties, and he said as well as this one went, he's probably gonna go with me for the other ones. So,
Love it. All right, awesome job, Rick. We'll call you back up, don't worry. You keep giving him a round of applause. Say awesome job, Rick. If I could whistle at you, Rick, I would. All right. So second strategy, subject to. Now, I understand that some of you guys have heard of these strategies before. This is not, again, to get you to be able to know creative financing all in about 45 minutes. I just need you to change your perspective on how real estate can be done, right? Because you guys might be saying, well, Rick got this deal, he got 0% down on this deal, like how often are people going to get that? Well, it actually happens a heck of a lot more often than you believe. And even more importantly, imagine if you just added that one deal to your portfolio. How would that change your portfolio? Would that be a positive impact? Just making a quick extra $89,000 on your portfolio, right? You don't have to go out there and do a million deals when you're using these strategies. They add up pretty quickly because you're creating a couple different paydays. So let's talk about subject to deals. Now, this is probably one of the most talked about strategy. Has everybody ever heard of subject to? Okay. Keep your hand raised if you know what it actually is. I feel like it's kind of like that white elephant sometimes. Like, I've heard of it. It's like Sasquatch, but does it really exist? Subject to deals are so important right now because we went through this massive amount of loans being written at a very small interest rate, right, during COVID and previous. Plus, you got a lot of these people that got into all these deals for little money down, right? FHA loans at like 3% down. But then what happens if a market stays stuck or flattens out? Or somebody gets into trouble, right? The most banks, right, they'll write up to like 40% debt to income ratio, or even sometimes even higher. Which means that buyer, if they mess up in any way, or if that buyer has any type of life challenge, they're gonna fall behind on payments really fast. And maybe you guys are seeing it up here just like we are in most of our places, which is taxes are increasing. Their assessments are finally catching up. Insurance is increasing because we have to take on the hit from the rest of the country going through a lot of challenges, right? Which drastically increases somebody's monthly payment, which means that most people can't afford it, especially if it's at that debt to income. You guys get what I'm saying? You guys following me? We tracking? All right, I know you guys speak as fast as I do, I promise. All right, titled so, mortgage stays in the seller's name. So you go buy it. And instead of going to get a new loan to pay off the original loan, you just keep that loan in place. I believe it's section, was it 332 on the HUD, it says subject to, and the mortgage just goes right in there. Or it could be a lien, it goes right in there. So you can go and acquire these. This absolutely is legal, and we do it all the time. Title then transfers to your company. So just because there's a mortgage does not mean that the same name on the mortgage has to be on title. They're actually completely two separate things. And I'm going in a little bit more depth right now because of how many of you guys had your hand raised that you're active investors. So, With that being said, title transfers to you, and then you just make payments on the seller's behalf. It's roughly 9 out of every 10, it's 6% interest rate or less. So what were the mortgage rates again on an investment property? You said 6, 7, up to 10 is what people were saying? Okay, so 9 out of 10 people where you could go buy their house is 6%. And 4 out of 5 have 5% or below. So between the two strategies I just shared with you, you can get a 0 to a 6% interest rate. That's a lot better, and it's on old debt, which means that these properties still cash flow. Right now, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen it just like we are. How many properties are not penciling out right now because you have to go get new debt? New debt on a property that has an elevated purchase price where most Americans have an affordability issue when it comes to their properties, right? But we're able to help people still get into properties because we're using old debt and good debt. Does that make sense so far? Somebody have a question? Yeah.
What would you do if the bank tried to call in the letter?
Oh, I love it. The due on sales clause is always one of them. Love it. All right, so there's a couple different things. The due on sales clause is a way of foreclosure, right? It's acceleration, which means that it takes some time, and depending on the area, what's the foreclosure? Does anybody know what the foreclosure is in New Hampshire? Timeline? 90 days?
No.
90 days-ish? Is somebody saying longer? Over, under, longer? Okay. Well, we all know it's an acceleration clause, right? So due on sales or foreclosure. Right. But the likelihood that if you're making payments on time that a bank is going to call a due on sales clause is very small. Now, I'm never going to be the person that's going to tell you that's never going to happen. But know that you have lots of different ways out of this. I'm going to share with you in depth, and then we can go further with it on Saturday. So we have been taught by our attorneys to buy our properties in trust. There's a rule written, it's called the Garden St. Germain Act of 1982. It's 82 or 84? 82. I'm going to stick with 82, it sounds better. And that means that you can transfer ownership to a trust for estate planning purposes. So what you do is you go buy the property in a trust. If the bank ever went and checked, they'd see 123 Jump Street Trust owns the property still, or owns it, then they typically don't go any further. Has anybody ever bought their own home with a mortgage? Okay. Do you have the same servicer as you did when you first bought it? Okay, so what's the likelihood that anybody actually knows who that owns the property? Now, I'm being a little facetious here, but my point is that it's kicked so far down the road at this point in time. Now, with most subject to deals, you tend to be dealing with sellers that are in a financial challenge, right? They're behind on payments, little equity, arrears. When the bank sees that the property's caught up and then the mortgage is being paid on time, it's very unlikely that's going to happen. But the reason why I brought it's a foreclosure is because within the trust, you could always transfer the beneficiary back to the seller instead of your LLC. There's many ways around it, especially when it's a good
You
deal.
can actually buy insurance, sub-2 insurance.
Yeah, NHREIG is the insurance company we use. There's actually sub-2 insurance built in. I think you pay a point in order to handle that as well. And then what else? You can go raise the private money real quick, or there's depending on how long you plan on holding it. Right, so I never want, and I'm glad you brought that up, Miss. Thank you for asking. It's like I planted her in the audience. Because I never want that type of scenario, that way of thinking to stop you from doing these deals. Because that's a problem that you have only if you have the deal, right? Lots of ways to get through this. Let's walk through this deal. So this was actually it's an installment sale, but a subject to. These